A political showdown headed straight for the Oval Office now. We could see some fireworks or maybe some smiles, maybe a little bit of both, some diplomacy between these two men. President Trump will meet tomorrow with New York City's mayor-elect, Democrat socialist Zohran Mamdani, a man he has called a communist and a danger to America. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The president made the announcement on Truth Social, writing this. Communist mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, has asked for a meeting. We have agreed that this meeting will take place at the Oval Office on Friday, November 21st. Mamdani spoke about it this morning.
I have many disagreements with the president, and I believe that we should be relentless and pursue all avenues and all meetings that could make our city affordable for every single New Yorker. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda that benefits New Yorkers.
President Trump has threatened to yank federal funding from his former hometown of New York City if Mamdani were to win, and he did. He even threw his weight behind Andrew Cuomo, who finished a distant second. He had to run as an independent because he lost in the primary as a Democrat to Mamdani. Now, after months of vicious verbal attacks on one another, the two men will share the same space.
The last thing we need is a communist. He's a total nut job.
That there is no borough that will be free from Trump's cruelty.
The Mamdani thing is it's a disaster waiting to happen.
This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one.
He's a communist. He's not a socialist, by the way. There's a big difference. He's a communist. He's down and dirty. He's a communist.
My administration would be Donald Trump's worst nightmare.
But we know President Trump can talk to anybody at any time. Peace breaking out in the Middle East with his 20-point plan that just passed the United Nations. And now this here at home. Alexandria Hoff is at the White House with a preview of the big meeting tomorrow. Alexandria.
Hey, Harrison, you know, this is a realm that President Trump has plenty of experience with. It was really his past disputes with New York City mayors that helped shape his political ambitions, his political style, dating all the way back to Ed Koch in the 80s, where Donald Trump, the citizen, would see something being done, knew that there was a better way to get something done, and maybe his way would be best. Now, this is a bit different, though. The difference is that President Trump has with Mayor-elect Mamdani aren't just permits or construction projects. They are fundamental. He's concerned about New York City's future. Before the meeting was locked in, the president said this weekend he wants to do what he can to help.
The mayor of New York, I will say, would like to meet with us and we'll work something out. But he would like to come to Washington and meet, and we'll work something out. We want to see everything work out well for New York.
Now, on election night, Mamdani said once again that his administration would be Trump's worst nightmare, as you have played. But on tomorrow's meeting, he's taken a bit of a different tone. His statement here, quote, as is customary for an incoming mayor administration, the mayor-elect plans to meet with the president in Washington to discuss public safety, economic security, and the affordability agenda that over 1 million New Yorkers voted for just 2 weeks ago. He added this morning.
I know that for tens of thousands of New Yorkers, this meeting is between two very different candidates who they voted for the same reason. They wanted a leader who would take on the cost of living crisis that makes it impossible for working people to afford living in this city.
Now, no details have been revealed yet on the timing of tomorrow's meeting, but this will be the first time that the two come face to face. Paris.
Alexandria, thank you for that. Ben Domenech is here, Fox News contributor and host of the Big Ben Show podcast. Great to see you. So I mentioned this just moments ago, and Alexandria went deep on this as well. This is the president's style. He talks with everybody all the time. How do you think this goes tomorrow?
Well, I think it's going to be kind of a cat and mouse game a little bit between the two of them. Mamdani obviously is somebody who has known for a while that he was in all likelihood going to become the next mayor of New York City. So he's not necessarily the surprise candidate that he was initially when he won that primary and set himself on this road. He's had time to think about how to approach this scenario, and obviously, regardless of the rhetoric that he used on election night, I think he knows that he needs the president and a good relationship with this administration if he's going to have the hope of holding on to any of the millions and millions of dollars that flow from the federal government into New York City currently. dollars that are going to be key, especially when it comes to his ambitious agenda. But personally, I think this is going to be most interesting to see how President Trump assesses someone who probably wouldn't exist without the existence of President Trump in the first place. Mamdani is in many ways a response, a reflection from the far left wing of this backlash to Donald Trump. He's the first candidate, I think, who truly represents that in a new generational way. And because of that, I think it's going to be an interesting back and forth between the two of them. And we'll see what Trump takes of him when it comes to the measure of the man.
What in particular are you watching for this in terms of issues? You've got this issue of affordability, which Mamdani says he won on, but interestingly enough, a lot of rich people voted for him, both in the primary and in the election that we just saw where he is now the mayor-elect. So what do you think about that?
Zohran Mamdani is only the mayor of New York because of that champagne socialist set that funded his effort in so many different ways. And I think that he knows deep down that's the truth. So we can talk about affordability. That's the kind of thing that obviously appeals to the narrative about who he is. But he also understands the way that this is actually going to go in terms of his political future, which is that he needs those wealthy people to stay in New York, to essentially cut deals with him in order to leave them alone, not come after them. That's going to be the kind of thing that might rile some of his socialist base, but it's also just the reality of what has to happen once you win an election like that.
Well, an epic faceplant for Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Critics are going after her, mocking her for accusing EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin of taking campaign donations from Jeffrey Epstein, meaning the dead sex trafficker and convicted pedophile. Watch.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly: Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio.
So maybe she had someone who had not graduated from junior high do some of her research. We don't know. The problem is with all of that, the donor was an entirely different Jeffrey Epstein. Zeldin clapped back with this. Yes, Crockett, a physician named Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who is a totally different person than the other Jeffrey Epstein, donated to a prior campaign of mine. No freaking relation, you genius. All of that. Crockett's wild attempt to defend herself just dug the hole deeper, so much deeper.
I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein. I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies.
Wait a minute. Critics blew up on social media after that. So she had them Googled. They didn't even use AI. Okay, that discussion for another day. One user with the donation Zeldin received from a Dr. Jeffrey Epstein came after the predator Jeffrey Epstein allegedly took his life in prison. Crockett is a total imbecile. Another with this. What an uninformed goofball she made herself out to be. And some suggest it was not just a mistake. She's not stupid. She was deliberately misleading. Here she is brazenly admitting it. So which do you think it is? She's incompetent, didn't do her facts, had somebody just simply Google, or do you think this is strategy on her part?
Jeffrey Epstein, the financier or the doctor? No, this actually matters. I mean, the actual question here is I mean, and by the way, pour one out for the poor fellow who has to go through life with the same shared name. But the idea that you would have some kind of spin that this was some type of 4D chess that she was doing, no, she and her staff were just being very, very stupid about this thing. This is also a common mistake. And look, you know, I think that in the sense of things that you find online, there are all sorts of people who go viral for claims like this that are ridiculous all the time, that even a few seconds of research would reveal to you falls apart. The fact that she included donations to Zeldin that came after the predator Jeffrey Epstein died in prison, is particularly absurd. And she owes an apology to every single person that she claimed falsely on the floor to have taken money in this instance. I doubt we're going to get it, though, because she just has the same attitude that a lot of these young folks have within the left, which is I can say anything and I will just see people boost me up, give to my campaigns, because it doesn't matter how dumb it is, it's still fighting the right.
Well, and this woman has been talked about as possibly running for the Senate. She needs to take those lack of skills in terms of research and knowing the actual facts someplace else, because that's not going to fly.
Absolutely, and I think that while she has huge political ambitions, this is just another sign of why some of the people who are in that faction don't succeed outside of the world of TikTok and the like, where their claims can just go viral without actually being questioned. And the spin that she put on this is just absolutely ludicrous. I don't believe it for a second, and no thinking person does.
Well, and it's bizarre that she would think that she doesn't have to even try to correct that now, other than to say that's why she said a Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, okay. Last quick one on this, though, and that's that thought that, well, if you put it out there, maybe somebody will believe it. Nobody else is fact-checking anyway. There is a portion of the population, the voting population, that will fall for this.
Yeah, I just think that they need to go back and look at Office Space with Michael Bolton, or understand the difference between the big Lebowski and the other Lebowski before they make any judgment calls on this. But the truth is, you're right, Harris. There are a lot of people who won't even stay for that and will assume on some level that what she was saying was true, even if it was false.
Ben Domenech, great to have you. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.